Hello, everybody. What's going on? What's happening? It's your girl Tiffany. I'm here live in effect. I had almost forgot I was on live. To be honest with you, I forgot that I was live for real. I was too busy doing other things, but I'm here. And you guys make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell and share this channel, and also check out the video contents on here. So today, getting into the topic about the Muslims and the Africans from the West African hemisphere. So reason why I'm touching on this subject, because a lot of people do not understand the historical facts, and we're still arguing about religion to this day. Why, I do not know. So it's like, for some reason, religion is always the main topic. Okay. So we got people who use this anti-African rhetoric so heavily. I mean, heavily, and does not seem to understand that there were people who were practicing religion long before they was in contact with those who were colonizers and slave traders, etc. Okay, so people were and one of the main religion that people was practicing in the Western African countries were Islam. Was Islam. So Islam was the most predominant religion. You know what I'm saying? And so it still is very popular to this day. That's just what it is. So, and then also the month of Ramadan is coming up. So Ramadan starts on April the 12th, and it's going to end until like May the 12th. All right. So with month of Ramadan, Muslims typically fast on that day and whatnot. So I figured that it would be a great time, because this is getting close, that I can talk about the Islamic culture and how it's in connection with West African culture, and go into other things pertaining to Islam. So it's the best time to do it. So I wanted to make that the main focus. And also I'm going to be dealing with other individuals as well, other subject, but I want this to be like the primary focus because of the month of Ramadan. And I want to at least give people some information, some tools they can use to really like educate themselves even more, and not just operate from the state of ignorance. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. So the title, as you can see, is the brother who went by the name of Mahommah Gardo Baquaqua, who was from the West African hemisphere, and he was a slave in Brazil. And he eventually fled away from Brazil to New York to have his freedom. So let's go ahead and look into his biography. And then I will show you a book that I have. I don't think I'll be needing this. All right. So I had to take some of those icons off the screen. All right. So as y'all can see right here, I'm on the website. So I'm on this website, and this is a legitimate source. All right. It's called slaveryandremembrance.org. Okay. And as you can see over here to the left corner, it says United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. All right. So this website goes into the transatlantic slave trade, the people that was involved in it, the artifacts, the those who were abolitionists, those who were slave freedom fighters, etc., etc. It goes into a lot of things. As you can see over here, where it says related pages, of course, you have Timbuktu, religion and slavery, ankle bracelet, middle passage, slave trade routes, etc. So we're going to look under religion and slavery later, but I want to be able to focus on this main topic and this main subject right here. So according to this information on this website, it says the life of Mahommah Gardo Baquaqua as recorded in his narrative. The biography of Mahommah Gardo Baquaqua provides insight into two important aspects of slavery in the Atlantic world. His biography reveals a greater understanding of the internal transatlantic slave trade, as well as in the intricate complexities and shifting status of slaves within the Atlantic world during a complicated period of the slave trade. Mahommah Gardo Baquaqua was born around 1824 in Zooggoo, Benin, to a prominent Muslim family. In his teen years, Baquaqua became a favored bodyguard to the chief of a neighboring town that was subordinate to Zooggoo. Because of his position, Baquaqua wrote, "I was singled out as a fit object of vengeance by an envious class of my countrymen, decoyed away and sold into slavery." As a slave, Baquaqua was sold southward from his home in Zooggoo to the Dahomey, where he was sold to the Portuguese slave dealers. It says Baquaqua arrived in Brazil around 1845 and was initially enslaved by a baker in Recife. In 1847, he came under the ownership of Clemente Jose de Costa, who was the captain and co-owner of the ship Lembranfa. In April of 1847, the Lembranfa sailed to the trade goods in New York, learning before the voyage that New York was a land of freedom. Baquaqua escaped the Lembranfa and, with the help of local abolitionists, appealed for his freedom through the court. When the appeal was denied, Baquaqua was sent to prison to await his re-enslavement by Jose de Costa. Baquaqua escaped from the cell, however, and with the assistance of friend, absconded to Boston. From Boston, Baquaqua was given passage to Haiti. It was here in 1849 that he became closely acquainted with Reverend William L. Judd, a Baptist missionary, and converted to Christianity. In late 1849, Baquaqua sailed with Jude's wife to New York, where he enrolled in New York Central College in McGuaville, which had been established in 1848 by the American Baptist Free Mission Society. With his education, Baquaqua hoped to return to Africa as a missionary. Though Baquaqua disappeared from the historical record after 1857, the written narrative of his experience as an enslaved and free man in the Atlantic world survives. The legacy of this narrative lends an important voice to the condition of slavery and the slave trade in the Atlantic world during the mid-19th century. All right, so as you see, this is artwork right here, a picture, and this is the biography. This is the biography. So I'm not sure where it can be found as far as the book in itself, but I know that this is the cover, as you can see. All right. So let's go ahead and look on to the next source. Then I'm going to come back to the other one. Okay. All right. So now, according to the Wiki1 source, it also goes on to say that he learned the Quran, literature, and mathematics in Islamic school, and he was still an adolescent. He and his brother took part in the secession wars in Daboya, where he was captured and then rescued. All right. And then it goes on to say he was a slave in Olinda, Pernambuco for around 2 years. His master was a baker. He worked in the construction of houses, carrying stones, learned Portuguese, and performed as escravo de tabuleiro, peddling slave. The cruelty of his Brazilian masters made him resort to alcoholism and attempted suicide. Then goes on to say right here, taken to Rio de Janeiro, Baquaqua was incorporated with the crew of the trade ship Lembranca, transporting goods to the southern province of Brazil. Then, of course, it goes down to say he was converted to Islam and baptized in 1848. And it says in 1854, he moved to Canada. His autobiography was published the same year in Detroit by Samuel Downing Moore. It is not known what happened to Baquaqua after 1857. He was then in England, and he turned to the American Baptist Free Missionary Society to be sent as a missionary to Africa. So, even with this information, it has not gone to further detail as far as what happened to him and how he passed away or anything like that. So, I mean, more than likely he did die, but they don't have any additional information as to what exactly happened to him. So he pretty much disappeared. So he probably just trying to keep away from being seen and being noticed by others. So if you guys want to look up more information, you guys can check out this website right here, Wiki1. And then going back to the other source, let's look up slave and religion. Let's see something. Let's see. Okay. Oh, well, let me see if they talk about anything about Islam on here. I don't think they talk anything about Islam on this page. It's talking more about Christianity. So no, I don't see anything regarding to Islam. All right, but anyways, okay, but that's the website, and that's all the information on him. Now, I do have a PDF, which is called Servants of Allah. All right. So here's the book right here called Servants of Allah, of African Muslims enslaved in the Americas. All right, it's Sylvia A. Duoff. All right, so let's just read a little bit about what it says African, Muslim, and Christian Europeans and its transatlantic slave trade. All right, let's see. Let's see what they talk about in the first chapter. So right here, this is chapter 1. It says, when the first Africans were deported to the New World beginning in 1501, Islam was already well established in West Africa. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. When the first Africans were deported to the New World beginning in 1501, Islam was already well established in West Africa. The religion revealed to the Arabian trader Muhammad between 609 and 632 CE had been introduced to North Africa as early as 660. South of the Sahara, it had been known since the 8th century through contacts with merchants from the north. Islam in its Orthodox Sunni forms started to spread. However, after the conversion of the two rulers, Ward Diaby from Takur in northern Senegal, which by applying the Sharia or Islamic law became the first West African Muslim state, and Koso from Gao in present-day Mali. Both conversions occurred at the beginning of the 11th century. Within 50 years, Islam had expanded from the banks of the Senegal River in the west to the shores of Lake Chad in the east. Malian traders and clerics introduced it to northern Nigeria, where the Muslims became known as Malay or people from Mali in the 14th century. All right. So right down here, and it says, in contrast to its arrival in North Africa, where it had been brought by the invading Arabs, the spread of Islam in sub-Saharan Africa followed a mostly peaceful and unobstructed path. Religious war or jihad came late in 18th and 18th and especially the 19th century, and Islam was diffused by not by outsiders except in the early years, but by indigenous traders. Islam was diffused by not by outsiders except in the early years, but by indigenous traders, clerics, and rulers. These carriers of the faith were natives and therefore identified culturally and socially as well as ethnically with the potential converts. Some fundamental features of traditional religions and customs, such as the ritual immolation of animals, circumcision, polygamy, communal prayers, divination, and amulet making, also were present in Islam. Such affinities facilitated conversion as well as accommodation and tolerance of others' rituals and beliefs. Africans themselves consider Islam an African religion. Did you not listen to that? African themselves consider Islam an African religion. So therefore, the whole argument about Islam was forced on the African people, and the Arabs made the Africans convert into the religion, and they was and all this other stuff. That is a misnomer. That is a misnomer. That is not true. Okay, that's not true. These people was already converted. The people already practiced the religion. They were already practitioners. So it became a part of their custom. And to this day, Islam is the custom, especially in Senegal. Islam is the main primary religion in Senegal as of today. You're right, brother Akamfo. You're right, JC. It is. Islam was already there. It was already there years before, long before the Atlantic slave trade, long before the European contacts. Okay? These people that converted were merchants. They were traders. And they took on the ideology, and they began to spread throughout their country, in their villages. So while people was practicing the Islamic religion, they was also practicing their traditional spirituality. They incorporated those things. I've been saying that for the longest to people. So people, you have to go and look things up for yourself. Okay, you got to study in more detail. It's not what y'all really think it is. It's much more to it. Was Islam used as a driving force to control people? Yes, it was. Certain group of people did take Islam to the extreme to where they can manipulate other people, but there were those who practice it as far as their own healing and made it a part of their own culture. That's what they did. So at the end of the day, you got to deal with from a psychological standpoint. As I mentioned before, religion is nothing more than a blueprint. It's just a blueprint. The psychology is where it's at. So for these Africans, it was more about the peace. It was more about the serenity. All right, there was wars taking place later on, but for the most part, they took it in as a serenity, as a peace, as a culture. We got to look at the anthropology. Okay? And no, everybody did not have the same religion. Everybody did not believe in the same God. Everybody didn't have the same spiritual system or the same practice of a spiritual system. There were some differences. So yes, it's a lot of things that you have to look into when it comes to studying our history and our ancestors. It's pretty complex. When I say it's pretty complex, it contains a lot of detailed information that we have not ever came across and we never heard about. You think you know something, but you really don't know. You don't know until you really study. All right, but let me go ahead and continue. All right, so now it says, in contrast to its arrival in North Africa, where it had been brought by the invading Arabs. Now listen, the invading Arabs, the spread of Islam in sub-Saharan Africa followed a mostly... Oh, okay, I already read that part. I read that part already, I think. Yes, I did. Okay, so let's go down here to the next one. My bad. Islam and Islamic population quickly became an integral part of the West African landscape. Islam was not the religion of the majority. It and its followers coexisted with non-Muslims. They coexist with non-Muslim. And some Muslim rulers governed largely non-Muslim population, while polytheist kings often had Muslim subjects. Muslim minorities could be found in practically every town. Muslim majorities in many. Islam was initially the religion of traders and rulers, but depending on the time and place, it also became the religion of the masses in opposition to their pagan leaders. As with any religion, Islam in Africa had a variety of followers: the devout, the sincere, the casual believers, the fundamentalists, the lightly touched, and the mystics. Okay? So let's see, where else can we go? What else can we find on here? Now let's go down to slavery and Islamic laws. All right. So what can we find in this book? Is Islam in Africa had a definite influence on governance, the administration of justice, and the intuition of slavery. The Muslims who were enslaved in the Americas, like their non-Muslim neighbors, were familiar with slavery. Some had already been slaves, while others had been slave holders. And those who were neither had nevertheless experienced life in slave societies. How the Muslims viewed slavery, what form it had in Africa, how one became a slave, and how a slave could become free offer important clues to understand how Muslims would live and react to their own enslavement in a foreign Christian land. So, and it goes on to say, African slavery did not follow one model. The institution varied according to the region, people, time, and religion. There were, however, similarities among the different African systems and huge differences with American slavery. Whereas kidnapping in the early days and straight purchase of prisoners of war were the methods by which the Americans and Europeans acquired their African slaves, wars were the principal source of captives in West Africa. The Africans' viewpoint on the matter is of particular interest. All right. So it says, when Frenchman Gaspard Molin told a group of Senegalese in 1818 that the European battlefields were covered with thousands of dead, they could not conceive that the Europeans could massacre men, since it would be more profitable and humane to sell them than to kill them. All right. So besides war captives, in non-Muslim states, criminals were enslaved, as sometimes were debtors who had first pawned themselves or members of their family to their creditor and could not repay their debt. With the development of the transatlantic slave trade, penal slavery increased very rapidly in this regions. Rulers added new categories of crime punishable by enslavement as they saw fit. On this point, British slave dealer Francis Moore emphasizes, since the slave trade has been used, all punishment are changed into slavery. There being an advantage on such condemnation, they strain for crimes very hard in order to get the benefit of selling the criminals. All right. So now they're going to show you the list of people right here in this paragraph who were particularly the slaves or made up the most population of slaves. Slaves were used as porters, soldiers, palace guards, domestics, and concubines, but mostly as agricultural laborers. They either lived with their owner's family and worked partly for them and partly for themselves, or were settled in slave villages to work as sharecroppers. Okay? And it says, in these arrangements, their status resembled that of the Europeans serf, as historian John Thornton points out. African slaves were often treated no differently from peasant cultivators, as indeed they were the functional equivalent of free tenants and hired workers in Europe. In addition, slaves were often employed as administrators, soldiers, and even royal advisors, thus enjoying great freedom of movement and elite lifestyle. The absolute chasm that existed between the slave and slaveholding in the Americas was unknown in Africa. Several European travelers who were familiar with the American system expressed surprise at the leniency of the African model. Francis Moore noted in the 1730s that some of the Negroes in Gambia have many house slaves, which are their greatest glory. Those slaves live so well and easy that it is sometimes a hard matter to know slaves from their masters or mistresses. So therefore, the slavery practice in Africa, yes, there were some things that were very harsh, but at the same time, it was not like how they done it here in America, because there were slaves who were able to become soldiers, servicemen, and they worked as housemaids, but they were treated a lot better. All right, they earned a lot more respect. But then there was those who was captive because they owed money. They were captive because, of course, they were enemies. So it was various reasons why slavery took place in Africa. Okay, and Africa is not the only continent that was practicing slavery. America is not the only one. But what I'm saying is, with the way that the American society went about doing slavery was very crucial, and it was very demeaning. The main focus was capitalism. That was the focus. And a lot of these slaves was working for free. They didn't receive any income. They weren't getting any type of compensation. They didn't get any type of inheritance. As a matter of fact, when it came down to their freedom, guess what? They had to buy their freedom. The slave master wasn't just going to let you go until you pay for it. And if you didn't pay, then guess what? You were going to keep working for the rest of your life until you can pay for your freedom. Or until you die. So the way slavery took place here in America was much different from how it was taking place in Africa. Okay? All right. So it says in Senegal, stressed another European, they were treated so well, eating with their masters, working along with them, and being as well clothed that it's impossible to distinguish them from freemen. Furthermore, African slaveholders did not mint out the horrendous punishments that were the lot of the American slave. A British traveler to Senegal remarked, "I never saw any whip or instrument of torture used on that part of the coast, nor do I believe from inquiries I made that slaves were treated with severity." His assertions were for the most part correct. However, a small number of West African people, notably in present day Ghana and Benin, who practiced human sacrifice, killed prisoners of war and slaves on certain occasions. Finally, the selling of slaves born in the family was generally considered unacceptable and shameful, and only those who had been bought could be sold. All right, so anyways, I'm not going to go any further on that chapter, but I just wanted to read chapter 1 of that book, and you guys can check it out for yourself. It's called Servants of Allah, African Muslim Enslaved in the Americas. Now, let's see, what else can we find? So now let's look at what it says, upholding 5 pillars of Islam in a hostile world. All right. Now, we're going to look at the upholding the 5 pillars of Islam in a hostile world. Scattered across every region of the Americas, the Muslims enter a hostile world, a world that enslaved free Muslim men and women, a white Christian world determined to wipe out any trace of paganism or Mohammedanism in their newly arrived Africans. Now, if you wonder why so many of them converted to Christianity, because Islam was looked at as paganism. It was looked at as being demonic. So many of the Africans went on ahead and decided that, hey, well, maybe I need to convert over to Christianity in order to earn my freedom, in order to not be looked at as a pagan. That's what they were thinking in the back of their mind, because they were in a foreign world that was not operating on the principle of Islam, but it was operating on the principle of Christianity. So most of the European missionaries, they were Christians. Okay? So they didn't have the luxury, or they didn't have the privilege to actually be comfortable with their religious practice. They could not practice Islam in peace. Yeah, they could not practice Islam in peace. So let's go ahead and let's look into more details. It says it was essential that the new land become Christian as quick as possible, because evangelization was a large part of the justification for the enslavement of the Africans. Moreover, as stated earlier, the fight against the possible spread of Islam had been an intense preoccupation in the Spanish colonies since the beginning of the 16th century. All the conditions were thus present for a rapid disappearance of Islam, or even for its non-emergence. A religion that requires as its five fundamental principles not only the profession of faith but prayers 5 times a day, almsgiving, a month-long fasting, and a pilgrimage to Arabia would seem to have had little chance of being followed by tightly controlled men and women. Nevertheless, the information gathered from all over the Americas demonstrates that African Muslims did not easily renounce their religion and its practice, if at all. On the contrary, they made tremendous efforts to continue observing its most important principles, the five pillars of Islam. So the first pillar is the Shahada. The Shahada means giving declaration, which is saying La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. So basically, you're saying there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of God. So that's the first thing that Muslims take when they get ready to convert into the religion of Islam. They take the Shahada, means that they give declaration saying there's no God but God, and that Muhammad, may peace be upon him, is the messenger of God. All right. Then she goes on to talk about, let's see, what's the second pillar? Let's see if I can find the second pillar. All right, so that's the first pillar, and then the second pillar is making salat, praying 5 times a day. So I'm trying to skip through all this. Hmm. Okay, maybe I have to go back up to the top. Hold on. All right. All right. So All right, so let me just go back to where I was reading. All right, so it says that Allah Muhammad, it was with these words that a runaway found wandering in Kent County, Pennsylvania, introduced himself to the men who interrogated him one day in June of 1731. He could not speak English and could not say where he came from or to whom he belonged. As a slave, he was called Simon. Later, he became known as Joe Ben Solomon or Ayuba Suleiman Diallo. All right, and it says Islam appears to have been a central force in other enslaved Africans' lives as well. Omar ibn Said from Senegal in North Carolina has left testimonies of his faith in numerous manuscripts in Arabic. Most start with an invocation to Allah and Muhammad. The last known manuscript is a copy of Surah 110 and Nazir, the divine support or the victory, which refers to the conversion to Islam. Another testimony of the resilience of the Muslim faith appeared in Balahi Muhammad, a Guinean Apollo who became something of a celebrity in the Sea Islands of Georgia. He remained a devout Muslim all his life and is said to have died uttering the Shahada. All right, so anyways, peace to you, brother. Peace to you. Peace to you, brother Bakar. So I'm gonna give y'all the 5 pillars of Islam. So the 5 pillars of Islam is taking the Shahada, which is La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, right? So that's the Shahada. The second one is the Salat. Salat is praying 5 times a day. When you pray 5 times a day, you make your Salat. So you pray in the morning time before the sun comes up. You pray when the sun starts to rise. Then you pray like in the afternoon. Then you pray in the you pray like when the sun set, and then you pray at night. So those are the 5 prayers you pray 5 times a day. So Salat is the second one. The third one is Zakat. Zakat is giving charity, means that you giving donation, or you help support somebody that's homeless, or you support a cause or anything of that nature. That's called zakat, which is charity. The fourth one is Ramadan. Ramadan is, of course, is the month where the Muslims fast for 30 days, and that is the requirement. You have to fast for 30 days in the month of Ramadan. So normally Ramadan comes around, it comes around like the spring and summertime. Okay. So you have to do it in a time where it's hot. Yes. Imagine fasting 30 days while it's hot. And you can't drink water all day, and you can't eat all day either. So the only time you get to eat is when the sun is now up, when it's nighttime, and when it's dawn. That's the only time you get to eat during the month of Ramadan, when it's dawn and when it's nighttime. Now, unless there is a situation where you are exempt from fasting, such as if you're sick, if you're pregnant or nursing, if you if you're an older person, meaning that you're old, you're an elderly person, and you know when you get to that age, you can't really fast. You gotta have something in your system. If you're a child, like if you're a little infant or something like that, you have to fast. So anything that, if you have any type of health disparity, or if you're currently nursing or pregnant, or as a woman you're going through a menstrual cycle, then you don't have to fast. You know what I'm saying? You can eat. But outside of that, it's a requirement to fast during the month of Ramadan, okay, for 30 days. And then also, the last one is Hajj. Hajj means taking a pilgrimage or journey to Mecca. So once out of your lifetime, a Muslim should be able to go and take a pilgrimage according to the Islamic tradition. Once our lifetime, you should be able to go and take a pilgrimage to Mecca and go around the Kaaba. The Kaaba is the big old black building that looks like a rectangle, like a square. And it sits right in the center. It sits in that middle. So yeah, you go to there and you pray, you circle around the Kaaba many times, and you go and make the salats and whatnot. So yeah, that's what you do as a Muslim. You go and make a pilgrimage to Hajj. Okay. And that's one of the requirements in the pillar of Islam. All right, so there's many more requirements, but those are the 5 pillars. All right, and I'm gonna say them again: Shahada, Salat, Zakat, fasting on Ramadan, and Hajj to Mecca. That's the 5 pillars. Okay. So eventually I'm gonna go in more detail about the Islamic culture. But if you guys want to look into this, you can check out the PDF. Once again, I'm gonna show you guys. Just download the PDF, or you can find this book on Amazon, or go on Scrib. Scrib is an app where you can find plenty books and audiobooks on the app where you want to listen to. You can find like almost anything there. You can download the books, and the membership is like $9.99 a month. So you guys can check out Scrib. It's on Google Play. I'm not sure about Apple, but I know Google Play has it. It's spelled SCRIBD. Scrib. All right. So, anyways, now giving a little bit about my background regarding to Islam. So, when I was coming up as a kid, I used to practice the religion of Islam because of my late mother. She was a Muslim, and she was an Orthodox Muslim. She was a Sunni Muslim. And through her practice, I was able to learn about the custom. Now, I'm going to tell you, it's a very strict religion. Yes, it's very strict. And there's a lot of things I did not agree to, which is why I don't practice it today. But at the same time, there's some things that's very relevant. So one of the customs is Islam is, of course, you eat with your right hand, and you always shake hands with your right hand, of course. And then when you go to the bathroom, you go in with your left foot, and you say, "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim." A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim means I seek refuge in Allah from the mischief of the shaitan. And so after you use the restroom, you have to do a thing where it's called wudu. When you practice wudu, that's ablution. Ablution is when you cleansing yourself, when you put the water on your skin, the water on your face, feet, arms, and all of that extra stuff. You do that after you use the restroom and when you get ready to make salat. And then the shower, they have a similar, when you're taking a bath, it's a similar concept to making wudu, but you do it in the shower. So, and that's like very common, especially when Friday, which is considered as Juma, that's when they have their service on Friday. So it's a requirement that you take a shower, you fully cleanse yourself, and you put on your white. And Juma should not last no more than 45 minutes to an hour. So Juma lasts about an hour, and then after that, you go your separate ways, etc. So I had to get used to all of that, and with that being said, that explains my knowledge and why I know a little bit more about Islam, because of that upbringing and that practice. So I do also carry a Holy Quran, which was given to me by my late mother. And every now and then I might read it, but other than that, it's a Quran. It's written in Arabic. And it has the English translation, and it has the transliteration in there. So Yeah. So and then also I have, well, I don't have a hadith, but the hadith is the book of is a book about the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's life. So the hadith goes into his life and his legacy and what he have taught the people in his community and his companions. So he had male companions, of course, female companions, people that recognize him and honor him. So Muhammad was well respected in the Islamic community, according to the Hadith, and he taught many things to the Muslims, and it was carried on. So there's different accounts. They may not all say the same thing, but it's a lot of stories out there. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I'm just very passionate to speak about this. Although I no longer practice the religion, but I do have some form of respect because of the upbringing and being around the Islamic community and the people. So I figured that when we talk about this, we need to when we sit here and say things like who is anti-African and who's not, that becomes a problem. To me, that's a very cult-like behavior. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to be initiated into a system or a spiritual system in order to be an African. You don't have to. That's your personal choice. All right. You have the right to choose what you want to do. If you want to get initiated into a school of thought or a spiritual system, then that's on you. But that does not take away from those bloodlines that you come from. And as I read to you from the PDF, it shows you that the Abrahamic religion, like Islam, been practiced for the longest. People been doing it for a very long time. People have been into the custom, and it has been looked at as an African religion by those in West Africa. It has been looked at as part of the custom. So when we sit here and make fun of our brothers and sisters, especially those who are Muslims, knowing what they had to deal with here in America, we're pretty much making fun of our ancestors. Because 30% of the people that were brought here to this country, they were Muslims. So you're making fun of them. You're poking jokes at them. You may not agree with the ideology. You may not agree with how the Quran is structured, and it's fine. You don't have to agree with the Quran. You don't have to agree with the principles, and that's cool. But don't sit here and try to throw shades at people and tell people what they are and what they ain't. You can't take away their lineage. You can't take away their relationship. But at the end of the day, as far as they're concerned, they are African. Because again, a lot of our African ancestors were Muslims. They practiced the culture. A lot of them. As a matter of fact, I'm going to play a video by Brother Abdullah Quick. He goes into more thorough detail about Islam and slavery. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna play a 2-minute video I have on here.
In the slavery period, especially when the British then...
All right, hold on.
In the slavery period, especially when the British then began to bring slaves in, they tried first with the poor white working class. That didn't work because they saw themselves as the master. They tried with the native people. That didn't work either because this was their land. So they would die, sit there and die, or they run away. Then they went to Africa, trying to isolate a people whose territory was similar to the territory of the coastline, who had physical strength, had good agricultural skills, who they could isolate. And then by making color codes, could make slavery into a color issue, and then brought them into the United States really as captured prisoners of war. Slave is the wrong terminology. Really are captured prisoners of war. But actually they say, we are realizing now through documented research that over 30% of the slaves or the captured prisoners of war coming into the United States were Muslims. They brought with them the knowledge of the Quran and the Sunnah. Qurans are now being unearthed, written by the slaves during that period. Salih Bilali Muhammad, Ayub ibn Sulaiman, Abdurrahman, and a number of names you will find being recorded, and the narratives now coming to the surface of this period of history and the position of the Muslims who led revolts all over the Americas. And we don't have time tonight, but in Suriname, in Jamaica, in Haiti, in Trinidad, in many parts of the Caribbean, the Muslims led slave revolts. In Jamaica, they were passing around a document in Arabic calling for jihad in Arabic. And after that, in 1834, a slave revolt broke out in the parish or the province or state of Manchester. But father was separated from mother. It was prohibited to fast in the month of Ramadan. In most cases, if they found you praying or fasting or speaking Arabic, they'd kill you. They'd torture you and kill you publicly. The names were taken away. The culture was taken away. But there are many families who have a relative who remember something. Something was there, that they weren't Christians. There's something different about their society. And it passed down. So we find in the 30s, in the early part of the 20th century, most of the leaders of the proto-Islamic groups, those groups coming up, either practicing Islam or some version of Islam, most of the leaders came from Georgia or the Carolinas, right out of the same area that the Muslims were located in large numbers.
All right, you guys. Have a wonderful evening. Please be safe. And until next time, this is your girl Tiffany, and I'm logging off. And thank you guys for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and make sure you share this channel and share the contents that's on here. And give it a thumbs up. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. If not, you can give it a thumbs down. That's cool with me. So until then, peace. And in the words of the Muslim, Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullah, barakatuh. And until next time, I'll reconnect with you guys with more information. So stay tuned, all right? Right then.